So I've been doing some research recently on a new type of historical costuming style that I wanted to get into. And one of the questions that I kept coming across while doing my research was other historical costumers asking, I really like this style, but can I wear this as a plus size girl? And I remember being a baby historical costumer and also having those kinds of thoughts, like, this style isn't gonna look good on me because I'm not small. But having had a lot of experience as a costumer and doing a lot of research over the years, there's something that I have come to realize, and that is that people have always been all sizes. Beauty ideals from any particular period have always strived for a particular look, but it doesn't mean that was always achievable for everyone. For instance, in the Gibson era, the Gibson girl was literally not a real person. She was an illustration, but that was the beauty ideal of the time. And beauty ideals have always varied considerably, not just from one century to the next, but from one decade to the next. So the research I've been doing lately is on historical Chinese styles, and the Tang era is actually one of the few periods in Chinese history where the voluptuous figure was actually prized. It's funny because in my research a lot of people are trying to downplay, like, well, is it true that they liked women who are slightly overweight? And then when you look at the illustrations of the period and the artwork, the women in these drawings have rolls of fat around their necks, and they're very voluptuous and round, and this isn't like, oh, we just like them a little bit well fed. This was like, we like our women big, and it's really interesting, and it's an exciting new project that's kind of consumed my historical costuming focus at the moment. But that isn't to say that you can't do Western historical costuming if you're a larger person. I mean, clearly I'm a larger person and I enjoy all sorts of aspects of historical costuming. I think the key is really to find what works for you as an individual. I know that people of all sizes have problem areas that they want to hide and other features that they want to highlight. We do that every day with our regular clothing, so why shouldn't we do that with our historical costuming? One of the areas I like to downplay are my upper arms. I don't like showing them, I don't like wearing short sleeves. A lot of times people who want to make an area look smaller will make their clothes tighter in that area, when the trick is actually to use more fabric in that area to mask the size of the problem spot. So one of the reasons I love gigantic sleeves so much is that when I have a sleeve that is as large as my upper body, you cannot tell the size of the arm that is underneath it. It could be a twig and it could be a sequoia, but you will never know because I have mountains of fabric over it. So just like finding clothes in the stores that make you feel good and look good, you're gonna have to do that same kind of journey with your historical costuming. I know most fashion advice when it comes to plus sizes is that you have to love your body because it's the only one you have. And I know that that's a very tall order because I've struggled with my weight for my entire life. And while I wouldn't exactly say that I hate or love my body, I think we've come to kind of a truce. I know which styles look good on me and which flatter me and which make me feel happy. And you kind of have to do the same thing with your historical costuming. You have to find the styles and the periods that work for you and that make you happy. So when it comes to my own historical costuming, I have identified the decades that do not work for me and the ones that I feel particularly pretty in. For instance, I really like the natural form era, which is a little counterintuitive because it's a slimmer Victorian look, but the early natural form period, the skirts still had a lot of volume, they just didn't have the bustle in the back. The early natural form period also has lower waistlines, and the first bustle period has very high waistlines, and then just like this explosion of floof in the skirt, which I have discovered through trial and error makes me feel like a busted can of biscuits. So that is a style that I just don't do that often. And if I do early bustle, then I tend to make it a little more streamlined and lower the waist to something that wasn't quite fashionable for the era, but works better on my own body. So one thing I would suggest doing is looking at your own current wardrobe and identifying features that you like and seeing how you can translate that into historical styles. For instance, large sleeves are actually in right now. There are a lot of sweaters that are on the market today that look like they're straight out of the 1890s, and if you love that kind of a thing, then you should probably investigate the 1890s and see if you like that style. A few years ago, peplums were super popular on shirts, and I found out that I really like peplums. And so I've started incorporating them into my historical wardrobe more because I find them really flattering and they work well on my figure to make me feel happy in the clothes that I'm wearing. Another thing you should do is investigate color in your wardrobe and see what colors that you like wearing and which ones make you feel good. I know as big girls we tend to wear a lot of darker colors because it helps make us seem smaller, but that doesn't necessarily always make you happy. I wear black a lot because I actually never really outgrew my goth phase, but I also have quite a bit of pink in my wardrobe. Pink makes me feel happy, so I have a lot of pink. One of the things I've noticed in my historical costuming is that I will wear colors that I don't necessarily wear in my regular wardrobe. I wear a lot of orange in my historical costuming. I don't have a lot of orange in my regular wardrobe. Orange makes me really happy when it's a Tudor gown or when it's featured in a giant sleeve. So investigate color in your historical wardrobe because it might be a place where you can wear things that you wouldn't wear normally. And they might make you really happy. One of the things I encourage you to do in your costuming research is to look at photographs of real people when they're available. Artwork and paintings, sculpture, those will always be idealized, but when you can find photographs of real people wearing real clothes, you'll get a better sense of what a normal person was wearing on a day-to-day basis. One thing I will encourage you to do with your costuming is to always wear the proper foundations. That goes for someone at any size. Or if you're a very small person, you might think that you can get away with not wearing a corset because I'm already small. I don't have to wear a corset to get smaller, but that's not the function of a corset. The main function of a corset was actually to create the right proportions for a fashionable silhouette, not the correct size. They also serve to support the upper layers, such as multiple layers of heavy skirts and fitted bodices that would be tailored to fit over the corseted silhouette. So don't think that the corset is there just to squeeze you in. It's actually there to help support you while you're wearing your clothes. Of course, there are always those that have chosen to tight lace and to reduce their measurements through corsetry, but those were always extreme examples. The reason that they were in fashion magazines is because it was weird. People on the average were not lacing themselves down by 5 to 7 inches. The average reduction that you get from a corset is 2 to 4 inches, which with 2 being the average, which is about the same amount of reduction you get from wearing a pair of Spanx. Corsetry didn't exist to function as a fashionable torture device. It was just there to support your bust, to create a fashionable silhouette, and to support your upper layers. Fashion has always tried to minimize the size of the waist in some way, and in the Victorian era that involved a lot of padding out the hips or the bust to make the waist look smaller by comparison. So you end up with these triangles in the body from the bust and from the skirts that are pointing upwards towards the waist and then poofing out, which makes the waist look smaller in comparison. It's a lot of illusion involved in historical dress. Oh, battery died. Where were we? Oh yeah, we were talking about illusion in Victorian dress. Another thing you'll notice in surviving pictures from the Victorian period is that a lot of these photos have been retouched. Now, at first it can be a little hard to see, but once you know what you're looking for, you can start to see the areas specifically around the waist where it has been nipped in just a little bit. This is one of those things that adds to the myth of the tiny Victorian waist. I'm not saying that there weren't people this small, but they were definitely photoshopping their photos before Photoshop was the thing. Another thing I'm going to say about costuming is that it does take a lot of trial and error. If you watched my 1850s bodice video, you saw that I went through about 8,000 mock-ups before I got to a bodice that fit me correctly and that I liked the way it looked on me. If you're just starting in your costuming journey and you're doing a lot of ready-made or off-the-rack pieces, just know that you're probably not going to get the best fit out of them and you may not be happy with how they look on your body. So either invest the time to make the garments yourself so that you can control the fit a bit better, or work with a professional seamstress or tailor to get something that fits you correctly so that you're not left with a garment that just feels frumpy. On the subject of frumpiness, that's another reason to wear all your proper undergarments. Historical styles were made to fit over rigid structures. And if you don't have those structures on underneath your clothes, they aren't going to look correct for the period. And I don't think you're ever going to be completely happy with how things turn out, no matter what kind of beautiful fabrics you use or expensive trims or anything like that. If they don't fit properly, if you're not wearing them over the right foundations, then I don't think you're ever going to be 100% satisfied with your end product. And that goes for people at any size. You can be small, you can be large, you can be somewhere in between. If it doesn't have the right silhouette and it doesn't have the right structure, I don't think you're gonna get to 100% satisfaction. When I first started costuming, I had this idea that my first dress had to be perfect. It had to encapsulate everything I wanted, had to have everything that I loved. And then I realized I could have as many dresses as I wanted. And so I could do all sorts of different things. I could experiment with styles and with trim and different fashions from different periods, and that's when things got really exciting, because you could play around with things. It's just like modern fashion. You can play around with things to see what fits best on you and what makes you the happiest. So do that with your historical costuming as well. If you make a dress and you hate it, you don't have to keep that dress. You can cut it up and make something new out of it. You can try a different pattern. You can try a different fabric. You can cover it with trim. You can leave it plain. Just keep working on your skills, keep working on different styles. Find something that makes you feel fabulous and then just run with it. I have a bustle era bodice pattern that I use for almost everything because I love the way that it fits. I love the way that it looks when it's finished, and it's customizable to a lot of different looks. Find your thing and make it awesome, because you're awesome and you deserve to be happy. So go make wonderful shiny things, cover yourself in floof, and I hope you have a wonderful costuming journey. If you've enjoyed this video, please make sure to hit that like button below. And if you want to see more from my sewing adventures, costume events, and other historical costuming goodness, please be sure to hit that subscribe button below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye! Beauty ideals from any particular era have always striven for a particular look. Striven? Is that a word? You'll have no idea how many times I have to edit out this ridiculous noise. Good in this because I'm not as angry.